Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cam. Can I be honest? I have my amazing guest, Susie. Susie, welcome to Cam.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. So I want the audience to know who is Susie.
Well, let's see. I usually start off and I identify myself as a mom.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a mom of 18-year-old, my youngest, and a 21-year-old daughter. And then I have two bonus kids. And my bonus son's 26 and he just went off to the Air Force. And then I have a 31-year-old bonus daughter that lives in New Mexico with a husband and two kids. So that's who I am in that hat. I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker, which is a therapist. I've been doing that for over 20 years.
Nice.
And I usually also say, and my husband hates it, when people ask, oh, what do you do? When you're at parties, oh, what do you do I'm a social worker. It's like, you're not just a social worker, you're more than that. And I'm like, that's what I identify as, because in the root of being a social worker is what I really embrace and embody. But I've worked my way up to management as a social worker, and I've did therapy in all the nonprofits in the area, and I've been in management for about 15 years now.
Okay.
And I've been at a big healthcare provider in Southern California, Kaiser Permanente. I've
Okay.
been in admin management. It's not corporate world, but I feel it's a corporate world. In when you move up,
Especially with Kaiser Girl.
yeah. And I've been doing that for 10 years. And, my youngest graduated, and it's this emptiness
Yeah.
feeling that
I was
happens.
just about to ask, like, how does that feel? Especially
Yeah.
because your bonus kids are a little bit older than your children, and that, like you said, the empty nesting.
Yeah.
How is that right now in your guys'
Yeah.
phase, you and the
That's changed
hubby?
my whole life, to be honest,
Really?
Carolina. This has been like a life changing year or 2 years. And that's what you'll hear. And I'll talk more about in the menopause era. You kind
Yeah.
of evolve in a positive way, but and I think it has to do with most women around this time, around the 50s. Their little ones are off to college or driving on their own, and they don't need you anymore, and then your identity changes. You're just like, I'm not running to cheer practices, I'm not running to baseball games, I'm not a taxi driver anymore, I don't have to make sure I have healthy food and dinner, because then you feel guilty as a mom. Now you'd like, I can just eat a bowl of cereal because my son's doing his own thing now, and so it
You get
is a
that time back, right? Like
yes,
your you time that used to be maybe a couple hours on a weekend is
more than that.
now
Yes.
it's now your entire schedule, right?
Yes. Have you seen baseball tournaments, cheer
I believe it.
competitions? It's like all day. So I had all this time, and instead of just being on the couch watching Netflix, which sounds amazing, I just needed to do something. I'm like, I need to fill this time. And that's where I dived into my new role. And that's a health and wellness coach focusing on helping women in menopause. And that's what I've been really diving into lately. Mainly, it started off from my own self, my own research for helping me deal with what I was going through, and then other women. And so that's kind of who I am, I guess, and what I'm doing.
Well, so I'm so glad you brought that up because I feel like that's a huge conversation right now with the Cam girlies. We had done an amazing trip to Joshua Tree, and I feel like that was a lot of the conversations that we were having because, again, culturally, I remember like my tias weren't talking about my mom. They weren't talking about, I don't even think Pobrecitas knew that they
No.
were going through menopause, right? They just knew that
Yeah.
something was going on in their bodies and the way that they felt was, calladita más bonita, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So with Cam, it was, and I swear I'm a firm believer, like everything happens for a reason. Things just
Yeah.
like fall into place.
Yeah.
I've been following you for a while, and then you came to the event, to one of the Cam events, and the moment everybody started talking about like, okay, well, perimenopause and what does that mean, and what are the stages? And again, you could always Google this stuff, but there's a difference when you can talk to somebody who's actually gone through it, is going through it, is able to guide you through certain things of like, hey, you're not crazy for feeling
Yeah.
this way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and the one thing that made me think of you was when one of the girls was just like, Caro, if you know anybody,
Hmm.
like I would love to hear that on your podcast of somebody who can talk about like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, a lot of people within their circles, they don't have a safe space, right? And that was the reason why I wanted to
Yeah.
create camp. But if you don't have a safe space to be able to share and what you're going to talk
Yeah.
about, that's hard to go through that emotionally, spiritually, physically, and
Yeah,
everything.
you women described as you really feel lost. So I want to first thank you. Thank you for having me on, and you're going to love this. I haven't told you this. I manifested being on your podcast. I didn't put it on my board, but when I started, I've been following you for a while too, just because we have that connection and you're just inspiring and I love the work you do. And then when I started to go into this business, my side business that I hope one day I can do on my own
Hey,
and
you're
be.
manifesting it, girl. You're putting it
Yes,
out there.
I was like, I am going to dive into every women's group and business group and stuff and try to just learn from people and learn from, and I watch you and I learn from you. And I told him I'm going to, her manifestation thing. And, she just has a great presence, a great following. I would love to, I go, she has a podcast. I want to be on her podcast. I know. So I thought you would love that.
Again, no, I love that, but again, when we were walking around Joshua Tree, I'm telling you, the conversation just kept popping up, and I was like, you know what? I'm all for trying to connect women together, right? And maybe I'm a little protective, but I also like to vet people
Yeah.
because, as you
Yeah.
know, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there who talk
Yeah.
the talk and don't walk the walk.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Right? And it's
Absolutely.
not genuine. And
No.
so the moment someone's like, "What about perimenopause?" And I go, "Look, knock on wood, I haven't gone through it yet, but I know I'm going to."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Let me see." And then I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "Susie has
Mhm.
been posting a lot of content recently." And I'm like, "You know what? Let me reach out to her to see," especially because Jonathan's traveling. I'm like, "This is perfect time." I was
Yeah.
like, the hubby is gone. I'm like, I can
I
be
heard in
all
your last podcast, like, "You haven't made, girl." We'll talk about that later. I'm like, "You have time on your own." But I'm 10 years into a marriage, so you just started, so wait.
Oh, I know. I can't believe a year is already coming up. I was telling him the other day, I was like, "How is our 1 year already coming up?" And he's like, "I know, it's so fast."
So
But
crazy.
Susie,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
tell me your experience.
Yeah.
How was it when you were like, "Wait a minute." What were the symptoms that you were feeling, if you don't mind
Yeah.
sharing, that you
No,
were
not
just
at
kinda
all.
like you were just kinda like, "Wait a minute, something, ¿qué está pasando?"
Yeah. Let me first, because if people are listening, watching, I want to make sure everyone knows what is perimenopause and what
Yes,
is
please.
menopause, because I did not know, and this is a very big misconception. But when a woman reaches menopause, it is a full year without a menstrual cycle, so
Ah,
without your
okay.
period. Once you reach 12 months, you reach that 12 months, then are in menopause. Before that, you're in perimenopause. Perimenopause. So menopause, their averaging age, and this is changing. You mentioned this.
Yeah.
It could be what we're eating. It could be so many things, but people are experiencing this younger. But menopause in some of, and I just got certified as a menopause coach, and so I have some of the data there. And then I have these books, and I'm like, but it's about 50 to 55 is when you reach that full year of no period, right? And they're saying it 2 to 10, even more, 2 to 10 years is perimenopause before. So if you do that math, it's 40 or 39, 40 years old.
Yes,
But
yes.
I know somebody who's 35 who's in full on perimenopause. So it
No
is
way.
starting younger. And people don't know because it can start off. So for me, I had the earliest symptom that it could have been perimenopause is I was at my son's football game about 8 years ago, and had like my first closest thing to a panic attack. And I'm a therapist, so I know what a panic attack sounds like from theory, but I never felt one. I worked with patients and clients that had panic attacks, but I'm like, this is it. And there was no triggers, there was nothing really mainly happening. And I never understood that day to this, until now, until more recently. I was like, panic attacks is part of it.
Really?
Vertigo, I had vertigo in my early 40s. That's also a symptom. So, what happens is women start to lose estrogen around 35 to 40 years old. Your estrogen and your hormones decline. When your hormones are declining and your estrogen declines, your body's out of whack, right? So, it's very similar. So, in teenage years, when you first have your
Yeah,
first period, so they always say women have three eras in their life that hormones affect.
yeah.
Men have nothing,
I
Well,
know.
we're
Don't get me
gifted.
started with that girl.
We're gifted. So we're gifted with the teenage years, your first period. And we know because we've been through it, you're moody, you're irritable, you're all over the place, you're crying for no reason. Periods are heavy, cramps. Then, if you have a child and you have a birth a child, you go through again what people call what postpartum.
Yes.
So again, your hormones are all over the place. Then it happens again in perimenopause, and it's about the same symptoms. So then I started having, for me, heavy periods. Like back in, I mean, I'm going to be transparent with all of you, like going through my clothes. I had to call my bonus son who was home and have him bring me clothes to work when I was, and now I work from home, thank God. I don't have that issue, but I wasn't far from home. And I'm like, oh my God, you need to go in my underwear drawer. You need to get me and a
Yeah.
pad and a tampon. And he was, he's really cool and he did it. But very heavy periods, cramping, like basically back in high school. So that's a sign of possible perimenopause
Yeah.
for me. But there are about 50 symptoms. So we can't cover them all in this podcast. It'd be hours, but it's really the most common that we know, hot flashes. That's what we just grew up hearing, right? Hot flashes. You mentioned our parents didn't talk about it. My mom never talked about it, but I do remember her being pretty bitchy in high school when I was in high school. And I'm like, what's happening, And so she was probably going through it during when I was in high school. Unfortunately, she's not around anymore, so I can't ask her. But I asked my dad, do you remember her ever saying, did you ever having her, did she ever have a hard time sleeping? No. I'm like, okay, And then I asked my sisters, you mentioned, people have different experiences or they don't say or they hide, and not to say my sisters are hiding it, but I would say like I think I'm going through like menopause or something. I'm starting to have like irregular periods and being hot flashes. Oh, night sweats. I was starting to have a really bad night sweats. And my sisters were like, nope, didn't have that. And so I started to feel alone. I started to feel what's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. And then I went to my doctor.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to my doctor for the vertigo or panic attack because I had no idea what that was, but it was irregular periods and the night sweats. I figured, okay, I think this is related to hormones. And my doctor says, well, do you still have your period? Well, yeah, they're heavy and they're long. Okay, then you're not in menopause. So this is just normal.
Ugh.
Because I remember menopause is without a
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so what do I do? You just, this is
Normal,
aging.
right? Just deal with it. You're like, I hate that
No.
for women. That's always been the general, just deal with it. Or you know what? Take an Advil, take an ibuprofen, you're fine. And it's like, no.
Yeah, that's what women to this day are getting. To this day are getting, and so I dealt with that for a while, and long periods. So, gosh, I hate being so, but I'd like to prepare women because I got nervous. And I was going on a 2 week of a period, and I'm like, something's wrong with me. And
Yes.
I was constantly emailing my doctor, like, okay, and then so then what they do is they want to do biopsies, they want to do ultrasounds. I don't know if you've ever had to have a biopsy in the office. It's painful and it's
Right.
all these horrible things they have to do. And not until somebody told me about a doctor that was on social media and she wrote this book, The New Menopause. And now, so menopause is a movement. So that like, in the last year, there's like probably 5 books out, but this was the first one. Dr. Mary Claire Haver.
You know what, Susie? Like that's the thing. I'm hearing there's just more and more people coming out
Mhm.
on having the courage to say, "Hey, I'm starting to have this symptom. I'm
Yeah.
42. Hey, I'm starting to have this issue. I'm 45." Like there wasn't those type of conversations. Even I feel like back to 5 years ago, gosh, if anybody said they needed a mental health day, we all thought they were crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I feel like COVID changed all of that because we all got to really think about mental health being a
Yes.
part of a lifestyle,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Very similar to the stigma of mental health, menopause is having that movement of
yeah,
destigmatizing it, but it's still an issue. I was able and lucky enough to go to this big event this last Saturday in Vegas. It's this big menopause party, and my husband and I went to dinner at that fancy steakhouse, Ruth Chris or something, at the Harrah's, and we walk in, and this, the waitress is, "Oh, what are you you guys here for? And then we're like, a menopause event. She's like, okay, I'll be right back. Like she was like, and my husband and I left because it's our daily talk. Like we say menopause probably all day long now, but we realize some people still don't like, are not used
Okay,
to.
so can we let's give the hubby some credit. That's huge too, because I hear the beautiful stories from the women from CAM that do have a supportive partner, and to hear how these men are just so open to learning and
Yeah.
understanding that, like, something as simple as, like, "Leave me alone today," and it's not because I don't like you, it's just because right now I don't feel it. I don't
Yeah.
feel like talking to you, you know what I mean? And I think that that's also something that says a lot to your hubby, that the fact that you
It definitely
have
does. I'm very
conversation.
thankful for the support. It's mainly, it's pretty scary. There's a percentage data out there that the percentage of divorce increases during the menopause years. And, we have definitely had some rough times these last few years because this is a beautiful thing that I think happens with women, but it's a little scary as well as you find your voice. You start opening up, you start finding like comfortable with your truth, right? And you just start saying and things that like maybe bottled up and I didn't have the energy before. I was dealing with teenagers, this and this. Now I'm like saying things and he's like, oh my god, what's wrong with you? Because sometimes I don't just say it like in a nice way and I do snap and then I have to be like, oh shoot, that wasn't good. But then you have to, of course, like, no, I mean, I meant it. And then you have to come back crawling back, sorry. But that was the other scary thing for me, to be honest, is the first time that I really lashed out at him and at him not anyone else. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And that's another thing that happens with women, the
So,
irritability.
that's interesting you say that, because my last guest that I just had, Deanna, she touched base on this as well, where she said, things probably would have been different in my marriage and her
Yeah.
divorce if she would have known what she was
Yeah,
going through. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm passionate about helping women not feel alone and helping them get through this because we don't want people to, their life completely change unless that's what they need. It depends on what's needed for these people, but we don't want women out there feeling lost and not knowing why they're snapping at their partner. Why are they not being able to sleep,
So
right?
then, can I ask you something? And sorry, guys, you know me, I'm always like, so then now you're in the perimenopause. May I ask, are you done with perimenopause, or are you now?
No, no. I just got my Aunt Flo Saturday. I have a long ways to go. And
Okay.
no, not at all. But so I just fast forward. I was lucky enough so I wasn't getting anywhere with a doctor, but I was reading and seeing on social media because it's blowing up. You can be on hormone replacement therapy, which we say HRT. You can be on HRT in perimenopause. Don't let your doctor say you have to wait till
Okay, good.
menopause. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I started reading more. I bought her book. I started following more doctors. It's just blowing up. And I'm like, okay, wait, I should be on hormone replacement therapy because not only it's actually beneficial to be on when you're in perimenopause, that's when you should be on because that's when your symptoms are at the highest.
Yes.
The earlier you can get on, and I don't, we could talk about this for a long time and it's still a little controversial, I'll let you know, but there is more and more studies and there's money going towards people studying this further, that HRT not only takes away your symptoms, it's preventative for Alzheimer's, some heart diseases,
I
and
love that.
osteoporosis.
Which is huge for women. That's what happens a lot. I mean, we lose so many.
Yes. So I'm like, I want to get on hormone. I want to, and so I started to really question now, how do I get on? And all I found really was you have to pay out of pocket. And so I found a lady at my daughter's first birthday in Cabo, a little tipsy in the pool, and we're drinking our cocktails. That's another topic we won't get into, but your body also changes and you can't drink cocktails anymore as
Not
easily.
like you used to. Yeah.
No, a glass of wine hits you a lot differently because your body definitely won't
It won't
process it.
process it the same, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
But I'm in the pool because we're celebrating my daughter's 21st birthday. And I think we started on the husband talk, and she pulled me aside and she was just like, don't get a divorce yet. And I'm like, I never said I was going to get a divorce. I think she was a little tipsy and she's like, call this lady, and I'll say it in your podcast in case women want to. I It saved my life, but it's San Diego Menopause. It's a
Oh,
doctor that is out, and it's all virtual because I don't live in San Diego.
yeah.
And but this lady lived in San. I think that's why we bonded, because we're in Cabo, and she had a Padre hat on, we had a Dodger hat on, and we started
Ah, okay, yeah.
battling. And so I get home and I look them up, and it seemed legit. And I ended up paying out of pocket for this doctor in this clinic and did virtual visits. And she explained it so, like, because I'm not a doctor, so a disclaimer, but she was able to really explain what happens to your body and the estrogen. And what HRT is putting the estrogen back in. So the patch, I wear a patch, and the patch is literally putting the estrogen back in. And then at night, I take progesterone, and that protects your ovaries. And so, again, the doctors can't explain it. And I took it, and I mean, in about 3 weeks, all my symptoms went away. Well, I should say the main ones that were keeping me up all night. I was
Yeah.
sleeping better.
Yeah.
My hot flashes went away, and my night sweats went away. And those were the three things that were really troubling me and impacting my daily functioning.
Totally. Yeah, if you don't have enough sleep, that's it. You can't function properly.
There's studies, so many studies now that are coming out of how much percentage of women that are calling out of work and that are missing work. So employers need to get on this movement and start supporting their employees
Yeah.
and having support for them, because again, I mean, you're not going to call your boss and say, "Oh, I had night sweats all night, so I can't work." You know what I mean? It's like you just call out sick. Um, but anyway, so I am on hormone replacement therapy. And I mean, I've been reading, like, you could be on it for life, to be honest,
Okay.
but you don't need to. So that's the part I need to learn more about, like how long I'm going to be on this. But I have heard from of the doctors from this Saturday that there's a doctor that's in her 70s, and she's been on since her 50s, and she's been on this whole time. Yeah.
So I was gonna say, what was it that stood out to you when you were at the conference?
Mm.
What was
Well,
the one takeaway that you were like, you know what, this is what I want to share with my community?
the convo. So besides seeing all the celebrities, because I don't know who's listening, but 90210 fan, and Jenny Garth was there,
Nice.
Holly Berry was there, Naomi Watts just came out with a book, so that was fun.
That is totally fun.
But as far as learning, but what's great about the celebrities, they're coming out and being vulnerable, and they're
Yes.
telling their stories.
Yes. But that's the thing, like this is where it's like conversations are happening just like how postpartum conversations have started, right? Because
Right. Was it
there
a
has
Brooke
to be
Shields that came
yes.
out, and everyone's like, okay, this is normal. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
because there needs to be empathy with
Yeah.
what's going on, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you said, it's not just someone being disgruntled with somebody. It's what is the root? There's always a root cause when we're reactive,
Yeah.
right? There's always something. So it's
Yes.
like being able to understand and for society to now accept
Yeah.
and be empathetic, be kind, and
Hmm.
just accept and be like, okay, how can I support? How can I help?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a Dr. Lisa Mosconi, and she's one of the leading doctors in this movement. She's a neuroscientist. I don't know, some smart
Okay, girl.
girl. Okay, so yeah, and she's done some. They just got approved. Her and her smart group. I think it's like a $50 million grant to do more research on brain activity in menopause, because the initial research is showing women perimenopause, perimenopause and menopause, and the brain activity is actually changes, which is scary. And that's why we have brain fog.
Yeah.
And that's why we have, well, we meaning me and you don't have that yet, hopefully, Carolina.
But no, but you're touching something that I think my correlation, right? And please
Hmm.
tell me if I'm wrong, because I hear a lot of my cam moms tell me about brain fog. And so when you just communicated earlier in the conversation about how your hormones change when you have a child,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of go through that change again, and then again it happens again with perimenopause. So to me, I'm thinking that brain fog is, if anybody has it, please get your hormones checked
Yes.
because
Yes.
there's an imbalance going on,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And so yeah, the brain fog, and so it's so scary. You can't remember words. I was just in a meeting, so that those symptoms haven't gone away with HRT, but thank God more and more this movement and people understand it. They don't just think, what's going on with with Susie, but I was in a meeting and they know my little the passion and we talk about all these things and I couldn't remember a name. And I just looked in the Zoom and I was just looking and then, we just laugh and then I'm like, oh my God. We were and then I remembered the name, but it's actually really scary
Mhm.
because women think, am I getting dementia?
Yeah.
Because it happens. You hear stories, people that have
Totally.
early onset. So you do have those moments like, do I need to get my brain checked? Do I need to? And some people, and you should, people should, if they have that, don't say, oh, well, it's probably just brain fog. I mean, I think if people have those symptoms serious, they need to for sure be checked. But it is very common to just literally forget what you were talking about, forget why you walked in the room, all those moments. And that's what's was amazing to see the brain images on
Yeah.
on the screen and to know that there's more research
Mm.
with this. So that was my biggest takeaway. And the research is going to also look at women that have had breast cancer or that have had moms or siblings that had breast cancer because there are doctors, even the San Diego Menopause, like she even said, if your mom or siblings had breast cancer, she didn't even feel comfortable prescribing HRT. So there needs to be more research on that. And there was this one doctor who said she feels confident that it doesn't cause at all cause breast cancer and that she prescribes it to women that have the history because she's confident it's not going to affect it. Now that's everyone's personal choice on what they want to do, but I'm excited about what's to come with all this money and all this research because all these women had to suffer. Our moms had to suffer. Like you said, our tias had to suffer. And so hopefully in the future, women won't have to suffer as much and we can have
Yeah.
something preventable that, maybe because I think it's 2/3 of people that have Alzheimer's are women.
That
Yeah.
is a crazy study though.
Yeah. And for Latinas and Black women, so basically women of color, shocker, we have symptoms more severe.
Mhm.
And so if as a therapist, that really and a social worker, I was like, okay, what's the injustice here and why? And what I'm seeing and what I've saw in some of these doctors is women of color have more stressors and have had more trauma in their background. And so they
Yes.
are finding an association with people that have high stressors with hormone imbalance. Yeah.
Yeah, no, wow, I can totally see that though. Because I mean, and that's why I remember, gosh, a couple years ago, I had to get my hormone levels checked out because my inflammation was insane. And I had just gone off birth control that wrecked me and gained like 20 pounds in like a month and a half.
Mhm.
It was wild. But I remember as in the 6 to 8 months that I took to try to figure out what was going on, like, why is this inflammation so crazy? They were checking my hormones, but that was one of the biggest things that they were like, your cortisone. They're like, cortisone and the amount of
Yeah.
sleep that I was getting. Cause
Yeah.
I wasn't, I was like, I got this, four
Yeah.
or 5 hours. No, us women need minimal 6. And
Yeah.
I am such, and I went from the person who would never take a nap because that's so weak, right?
Yes. Oh, me too.
Totally. I was totally that person.
Yes.
And now I'm like, don't be me. I tell my nieces, don't be me. If you're tired, take your
Yeah.
nap
Your body needs
because
it.
women we need the
Yeah.
rest. We're not
Absolutely.
made for that.
Yeah. And you mentioned weight gain. That's another symptom of perimenopause is weight gain. And basically you're doing the same workout. So I know what I connected with you when I first started following was Orange Theory. We were
But
going
yeah,
to Orange Theory at the time. I don't anymore because it's a little pricey, but I love it. We miss it. I mean, I
yeah,
love Orange Theory.
yeah,
And I was doing Orange Theory. I was doing everything that I would always do and even more
yeah,
and I gained 10 pounds in 1 year. And so that brings so much, you know how that is, the
yeah,
self-esteem, and then you not feeling sexual anymore. And then another symptoms is low libido, your whole sex drive out the window.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, feel comfortable sharing. How do you, with your patients that do communicate that, what is it that you can share on how to manage something like that? Because you're right. That's why I mean, I always understood that there was, again, these symptoms that you get that
Yeah.
cause stresses on the marriage, right?
Yeah.
And it sucks because if you don't have the right foundation or just an understanding partner,
Right.
that can cause major issues, right? So if you had, or if you can share, what
Yeah,
is it that's something that you could give advice to somebody who's right now listening and saying like,
right.
"God, that's me.
That's me.
I don't know what to do." How would they
Well, for
handle
sure, tell all I do weekly lives and I tell every woman go to your doctor, go to your either primary doctor or your gynecologist and ask for some tests. There are some get your hormones checked, get your thyroid checked. So you want to start with first finding get lab work done.
that? Yeah.
Okay, to even see are you in perimenopause? Do you have these symptoms? And then obviously that I it's a hard one because I everyone should go to their doctors, but we know some doctors
Yeah.
will
Oh,
push
yeah.
back. And we know why they push back. They get 7% of their training in med school is on menopause. So it's not their fault. They just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And of course, their doctors are not they're watching themselves. So I would first start there. And one of the other things I didn't mention that they prescribed to me and they prescribe women is a topical cream that you put in your on your vagina that will I believe increase activity. I'm not thinking of the word, but kind of get it going again.
So kinda like arousal? Like, kinda like
I
an
think,
arousal?
yeah, it helps with a few different things. It also helps. The other thing that happens is if you've had kids, there's
Mhm.
a medical terminology and it's brain fog, but basically, if you laugh or you cough, you might pee a little bit on yourself. So that cream helps with that as well. So there are topical things that doctors can prescribe. And the conference I went, they I should pull it over. They gave us a big gift bag full of free gifts.
Yeah.
I would say 80% of those gifts are lubes, are like top of are
Love
like
it.
all for yeah, I have one right here. Well, no, this is a cleanse. It's like the intimate cleansing gel, but I had like because I gave these away in my lives, like some of the free gifts I got, I'm giving away in my doing my
It's
raffle.
so cool.
I yeah, so all these loops. So there are products out there that can help and being honest and having that open communication with your partner, honestly. That right now I'm trying to figure things out and it's not and you have to be honest and that's hard sometimes, right? Have those vulnerable conversations because people get sensitive, like, and it's not you, it's my body right now. But pain, so women can experience pain during intercourse
Mm.
as well as the low libido. So it's two issues that happen that doctors definitely could help. The other hormone that they prescribe I'm not on is testosterone. And that is what they're saying helps also that increases your or gets your libido back.
Wow, okay, and then so what about someone who's emotionally dealing with this? What would you suggest for them in, how would they check in with themselves, or how would they kinda, guide themselves through something like this that they're having a tough time with?
Yeah. I mean, what a support system, right? And so finding that person that you can talk to, and that's what drove me to do my Instagram and to do my weekly lives because women were asking. Like I was starting just texting friends, and they're like, "Oh, Susie, you should do a support group." And so there are groups out there that you can find. I mean, it really is a movement right now. And so I'm one out of many coaches out there that support women through this. But really, you can go always. I'm a therapist, so I'm always promoting therapy.
Oh, yeah?
I have so many. I'm in the visionary state right now, Catalina, with this. I want to develop, and I am developing a training for other therapists. So when a 50-year-old is coming to them because they're feeling depressed, irritable, or anxious, we immediately just diagnose
Yeah.
anxiety. And why don't you go see a psychiatrist and get on some anti anxiety meds? Now, oh my God. And we find this is not helping women. Some women, of course, there are women that actually have a serious mental illness or have major depressive disorder. And those people, some of, they do need medication for that. But most women we're seeing in therapy really need to honestly be on HRT. Go get your hormones checked. Take some hormones, or this is what you preach. We have to change our diet.
Yeah.
We have to exercise. And so this is what I coach on is helping people with those things that we just have to do. I mean, I understand the struggle. We all understand the struggle of lifestyle changes. But if we want to be, there for our future self,
Yeah.
then we have to start now.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what I do, is help with diet, exercise, get your hormones checked, find your support system.
Yeah. No, I think that's thank you so much though for sharing all of that. I think that's so helpful to hear. Again, I'm huge on, you have to talk the talk and walk the walk, because
Mhm.
there that would be like me talking about perimenopause. Girl, I don't know. I haven't been, how could I share and be like, yeah, listen to me, because I don't know jack shit about you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, again, I learned so much from you right now, because I had no idea that that was the difference,
Yeah.
right? I had no
Yeah.
idea that perimenopause is, you're still getting your cycle. It's just not as frequent, or
Yeah.
it's spaced out with the heavy bleeding, with the symptoms that are starting to pop up, compared to menopause is a full year.
Mhm. No.
And that's
And
what
you
the
know what
difference.
happens is that it happens to me, it happened to all my friends. You go like 8 months, 9 months, and you're
Yeah.
like, "I'm there, I'm there."
Yeah.
And then you get it.
And then you get it.
Mhm. Yeah, so I was doing a live and somebody said it was they were on 11 months and then they got it, you know? So
So when that happens, is it like, when you get it, just do your hormones just get thrown super off, or how does that work?
I honestly, I don't know. I just know it sucks. And I know, but I think what they say in perimenopause, which is, your period, your hormones are, when I said your estrogen declines, it's what I'm learning. It doesn't decline in a nice little decline like that. It's like this. It's like this.
Yeah.
So my guess is your body's like that. And so not until it stables out is probably when you stop the bleeding. And then in menopause, it doesn't mean all your symptoms go away. You definitely still have symptoms, but again, the research is showing then the symptoms do decrease once women start to reach menopause and as they get older. So you're not stuck with, because a lot of women can't take HRT, as we talked about, if they have history of breast cancer or they just don't want to. And because there is a 2002 research study that came out from the World Health Organization that basically said HRT causes breast cancer. So that's what caused many doctors to fear prescribing it.
Yeah, to
They
be like,
have
no.
right, and they've totally debunked that study. They found all the flaws. The women in the study were over 60. So they now are trying to come out and educate other doctors that that study isn't accurate, and the studies now are showing that is not true.
Yeah.
So women still know that and have that myth and so are scared. So you don't have to live with hot flashes forever and night sweats forever if you eat healthy and exercise. And you can take supplements, and there are other things out there that are over the counter. This they sell over the counter, and it's estrogen, and you can buy that, and that also helps. It's not as strong as the actual prescription, but it does help women that are not ready for the actual HR.
So, with HRT, is it, and you could give a ballpark, you don't have to give the
Mm-hmm.
exact amount, but is it like kind of like how the GLP-1, where it's like, because it's out of pocket, it's so expensive. Are we
Oh
talking
yeah.
about like $1,200 a month?
No. So I forgot to mention. So after I went out of pocket, I went back to my doctor in my healthcare plan, and I messaged her and got a video visit. And I told her, I said, I waited till I was on it enough, stable and ready. And I said, I went, and she wasn't very happy because they're never happy when you go out of the plan.
Yeah, of course.
But I said, I need you to prescribe it. And she did. And
Oh,
so now I get it through my healthcare plan. However, before when I was paying out of pocket, it wasn't actually too high. I just felt I should not be paying for this.
yeah, 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 of
I
course.
think if I remember, for a 3-month supply was maybe $60 for the patches for 3 months.
Okay.
And then maybe $20 for that bottle of progesterone. So maybe less, about 100 or less than 100 for 3 months. So then you times that by, 4, so I mean,
Yeah.
it is, could add up,
Yes.
but it's not crazy expensive.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just because I was curious, I was like, oh, I wonder what that is, or how much that would
Yeah.
be. So I
But
could
you,
only
and
imagine.
we should not pay out of pocket. We
I
should
know. I
have,
agree with you.
and so
These
that's my
insurance
goal.
companies. I know these insurance companies, I mean, like it's a business at the end of the day, right? So, but you're right. When you go out of the service and it actually works and you come back and you say, "Hey, this worked for me.
Yeah.
I just need you to just get out of your ego and just do it
Yes.
for me." Right? Yeah. I think that's also another shift that's going on right now is that I don't know, back in the day maybe we just had more trust in the doctors, but we're advocating more for ourselves
Yes. Yeah.
where it's if our intuition is ringing the bell of this doesn't feel right, I want
Yeah.
more tests done. It's no longer, well, no, because I said no, because I said so or whatever.
Right.
We're able to ask and be like, do it. I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think more women need to do that. Culturally, Catalina, you would look up to your doctor as
Yeah.
God, like whatever they said was right. And I do respect, the doctors, and I do, listen to them. But when it comes to this and menopause and perimenopause, we know our bodies.
Yeah.
And if you're not right and you're listening to this and something's not right, you do need to advocate and check your hormones. If you're around 35 to 55, you could start you at 35, you can start
Yes.
perimenopause.
And I appreciate you saying that because I think sometimes that's a little bit of a denial if somebody is starting to feel some symptoms.
Hmm.
And I mean, and I get it, like that's scary, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
And then to think like, wait a minute, what, like I'm 35, like no, I still got
Yeah.
time and this and that.
Yeah. And the word menopause is just like, I mean, I remember leaving the doctors. It was, that first time I was like, is this menopause? And it has this like stigma, like, oh my God, I'm old, like I'm dying.
And
Like,
that is so not true.
yeah. And
Okay.
I love now my view and all the women I've been surrounded in this world of movement is so like, I mean, even the celebrities, like it's just, you actually are becoming a better you.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. I forget what Shepherd, Sherry Shepherd,
Uh-huh.
Sherry Shepherd. She has, I think, a show on. She said she was part of the event Saturday. She wants everyone to throw a siesta when they reach that 12 months party and celebrate that time. And I love that because that's what I'm going to do.
Well, yeah, because I again, right? Like it all goes back to perspective and mindset, right? If we understand and have the mindset that this isn't the end of life. This is just another chapter and a beautiful one that we get to do differently.
Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately, because right now, so, very few celebrities that, like you said, there's the brave ones that are stepping up and saying,
Yeah.
like, hey, this is what I felt like. I feel like Halle Berry's been the biggest one that I've noticed
Mhm.
because she shared so much about how, like, hey, I'm Halle Berry. I have the money, I have the resources, and I
Yeah.
still was misdiagnosed.
Yeah.
Right? I was told that I was crazy. I was told this and that. But it's just so nice and refreshing to hear that. And again, it's these women communities that we're all building
Hmm.
where it's about sharing kindness, sharing experiences, being able to be there for one another and just being able to
Yeah.
say like, "Hey girl, that was me 3 years ago. This is what I did. Hey girl, if this is what you feel, like ask for
Yeah.
these blood works or this test, you know what I mean?" But I do think it's very much needed as women communities continue to grow, especially the authentic ones who are genuinely here for the right reasons, right? I don't want somebody to go through something that I did that I
Yeah.
was alone.
Right. Yeah, if we can learn, let's learn from that.
Yeah.
And everyone's different. That's the other thing, always every woman is experiences perimenopause and menopause different.
Yes.
So we have to also be careful not to exactly compare, but it is good to know that you're not the only one experiencing these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, you don't have to share if you don't want to. So, perimenopause, you've had it for how long now, Susie?
So I'm 51
Okay.
and I probably started my symptoms around 42, 3.
Okay.
So almost 10 years.
Wow.
So I'm going on a while of the perimenopause, and that's why I mean I had the symptoms really bad. The hot flashes, Carolina. I mean it's so bad. Have you had a hot flash? Have you experienced? It is an
No, but
internal
okay.
like heat. It's not external, and that's the part I
Right.
didn't realize. It's internal, and nothing helps. Like you're just like you have fans everywhere. I mean it was so bad, and I needed something. I'm like I need something, but Yeah, I hadn't suffered with that for 8, 10 years. I think, like I said, around 42, I started having those weird symptoms like that vertigo, itching ear. There's some weird symptoms. I'm telling you, itchy ear, your ear itching, the
So
weirdest
then
thing.
so then okay, so then because I'm trying to think for myself, right?
Yeah.
Like these questions I'm asking, it could be for the audience too, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
think, okay, Carolina, like for yourself. So you're saying when it first started, it was very much different symptoms. They don't stay the same all throughout the 8 years, right?
No, 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 thank God. So you don't know because you're just like, what is this?
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I was gonna try to. I have a sheet that has all the symptoms, and there's some weird, like unusual symptoms you would never guess as part of perimenopause. The one that I thought was funny was called frozen shoulder. Have you ever heard of frozen
Yeah, I've
shoulder?
heard of it. I've heard of it, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, what's
really?
frozen shoulder? Well, of course, I had it one time, and it went away, and thank God, because some women it doesn't. But it literally, like, your shoulder just like locks up and is in pain, and you're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And, I just got on, I think I was on vacationing. So I went in a jacuzzi and I did those icy hot patches and it never came back, knock on wood.
Yeah.
So some of the things just happen once. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it could just be like sporadic like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this was a
Mhm.
wealth of knowledge, but I also like how you pair the two of just not only checking the hormones, but also like you said, it's a lifestyle change. Because the part I'm
I
sorry, I am not a fan of the party and bullshit. Steve can tell
know.
you from the years that I have been trying to get
I
that
know.
mindset
That's
out of his.
right.
And you know what? And I laugh because I'm like, okay, Steve, I was like, you looking like a different person, but it's
Yeah.
only because he finally took my advice.
Yeah. He looks great. You
Yeah,
did
I'm super
good.
excited for him. But the thing is that there's a shift that happens mentally too that some people don't have that, Susie,
It's
unfortunately.
mindset. It's the mindset that it took me a while, and everyone goes through their stages. I know I've
Yeah.
gone through my stages where I'm a little bit more, like, but I've learned it's just like you're driven now. For me, you have to have that kind of what's your end goal?
Hmm.
And I am not going to I don't want to have issues. So the strength training, we lose 8% of our body, our bone density,
Yeah.
I think after 40. And so that's why you see older women, older ladies, they have fractures,
Yeah.
bending over, your
Yeah.
posture. So I don't want to
Simple
be
things,
like
right?
that.
The daily stuff.
Yeah. I want to be like Cher.
Say that because the other day I got laser treatment done. And I was telling Bailey from Bowie Medical Studio, and I was like, she was like, okay, girl, this is, I said, no, girl. I said, I love J-Lo and I want to look like J-Lo at 55. I said, but after seeing Cher at the SNL,
Right? Yes.
I want to look like Cher.
Right. And yes, I mean, all these women that are in their 70s that look amazing. That's what I want to be like, right?
But I also like I love that we're talking about this. I also think it's because we're no longer allowing ourselves to look like the Golden Girls, right?
Right.
Like it's
Yes.
no longer falling into the stigma. You have to get the haircut, you have to dress a certain way,
Yeah.
you have to. It's like all of that is being peeled away because guess what? We get to be ourselves, and
Right.
whatever that is, like. I always tell the ladies, like, we are ageless. It doesn't matter. I mean, Jane Fonda is amazing
Oh my gosh. Right.
looking. You know what I
Right.
mean? And again, I'm all for plastic surgery. So if a little facelift here and there, like why not, right? But
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that is where it's like, let's celebrate one another.
Right. And you can do whatever you want. If you want to wear a boo-boo
Yes. Yes.
and embrace your gray, do it. It's funny that came up recently in a group of friends that were all the same age. Some of them want to embrace their gray now, and I'm like, you do you. I'm not ready for that, and I think that has to do with maybe my mom. My mom, to the year she passed, always got her hair dyed.
Yes.
And it was like one of those things.
Senoras, let me tell
Yeah,
you, those
yeah,
senoras, damn, head to toe to the nine. Like I always think about the pictures that my parents have. And like I think about like my grandma and grandpa, and I was like, wow, they were just so classy and dressed so
exactly.
well.
Right.
Like the pride that they had in themselves, like, man, I wish I could have 50% of that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because it's just so
absolutely.
different.
Yes.
So then, okay, Susie. So Cam, can I be honest, right?
Yeah.
So, what's one thing that you would like to share to the audience that you would want to be honest about, if there's anything that you can share?
Good question. I mean, really, don't be embarrassed about any symptom or feelings you're having. When it comes to your body or it comes to your relationships, and not just your partner relationships, even friendships. I think this is another thing in this era that, I think I've heard you talk about this, Catalina. Like, it's okay if that friendship's not providing value in your life anymore. And that's something I've had to do in the last few years, is to end friendships that were not providing value, because you want people that are going to be like this, support you through these things and not judge you for sharing certain struggles, right? So I think just being true to yourself, authentic, don't feel bad for these feelings. And when it comes to those that are in relationships and have partners, be honest about what you're going through, and say, look, and even if you have children that are at home or that see, like their mom, what's happening with mom, why is she yelling at me more, or things like that. Being honest and say, look, I'm going through something with my body right now and I'm trying to figure it out, because we're just trying to balance our hormones. So give me grace. You have to give me grace if I lash out, or if I'm moody, or if I just want to step away and be in the room and isolate a little bit.
Mhm.
Because those are the things that I dealt with, that I never, I'm an extrovert. I like to be around people. I'm social, but I notice sometimes, you know what? It's okay. I just want to watch TV by myself. And I think that's, to be honest, what I would say is I would share to people, don't feel bad or don't feel like you're hurting people's feelings. And it's okay if you hurt people's feelings. You got to think of yourself right now in this era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you so much, Susie. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. I know
No, thank
everybody's going to
you.
love the information that we all learned today. It's, again, this is just the beginning of the conversations that are coming.
Yes.
I cannot wait to check in with you a year or
Yes.
two from now. And it's like you telling me your practice is here
Yes.
and there and all this stuff is going on. So I mean, look, you're a manifester, man. Like
Yes.
you believe in yourself and you made it happen and you just put it out there and you just had the faith and that's all that matters. You know what
I
I
know
mean?
manifesting is scary. I think you talked about this in your podcast I heard recently. And if my friend, one of my friends listens, she laughs because I manifest. So I think you knew my first husband, and my ex-husband just wanted to, and we were married younger. So it was just like he didn't want to spend time with me a lot. It was always about his friends and doing things with his friends. And even when I had kids, we had kids and little ones. It was like, oh, I
Yeah.
had to go play basketball. It was always playing
Mhm.
basketball, always doing things. And so I manifested in my divorce somebody who wanted to spend time with me
Yeah.
and wanted to do everything with me.
Yes.
So I have his love language is quality time.
Yes.
And 10 years later, it drives me. And my friend will remind me all the time, Susie, you manifested that. You can't, this is what you asked for. And I'm like,
What
I
you
know, but I
asked
just,
for.
I just want to go. Don't know if we're still banning Target, but when we were going to Target, I'm like, I want to just go to Target alone.
You're like, wait a minute. No, yeah. That's so interesting you say that because I feel like we're so driven and you're so focused and you're so in your like day to day just getting it done that you truly have the faith and put it out there because you know it's going to happen. And then once you get it, you're right. It's one of those things where like I always tell people like, look, once we get our blessings, it's our job to stay disciplined. It's our job to keep it. And while by us doing that, we create more blessings and more
Yeah.
opportunities, right?
Yeah.
But we are human.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's one of those things as we evolve, we also learn like, wait a minute, I really, really like my alone time.
Yeah.
And that was a struggle for me getting back into a serious relationship
Yeah.
where I was like, wait a minute. And Jonathan is very much
That's
quality
why I
time.
said you have it made, girl. That's why I told you.
No, his love language is quality time. So when he's home, it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
all about him,
No,
right?
but that's good. Yeah.
But it's again, I'm a firm believer. Like I don't try to sit here and say, oh my God, I have the perfect relationship. No, it's two people coming together that are very different. We have generational differences. He is 10 years older.
Mhm.
So there is going to be a
Yeah.
conflict. There is going to be hard conversations, right? And it's just as long as we don't shy away and
Yeah.
we
And grow
say,
from them.
yeah, and then you learn and you figure out, okay, what do you need today? Okay, you need this today. Okay, I need this today. I need maybe 2 hours of just alone time. You know what I mean? But I love that. I love that because you're right. You do have a very kind, loving husband. Again, on social media, you can tell when someone is forced to do a specific act or do, and there's something that I love to do is that when I see videos of genuine relationships that you can see like it's just real, right? Because again, you do share the realness on your
Yeah.
content
Yes.
of like today, this is happening. Like I just lashed out on him. Like it
Yeah.
is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But that's because it's true, Susie. Like
Yeah.
that's life. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And that's what it's like when you're married. Sometimes there are moments that you get on each other's nerves. And then other days you're like, I'm so glad to see you. I just love you so much, right? You're my person. Like, but I love to constantly communicate to everybody, even if I trigger somebody on social media because they compare. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
don't compare. That's the thief of joy. No one is going to put 100% their struggles on social media.
Yeah. Of course.
So just know that there's, everybody has a struggle.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just may not share it. But
Right.
again, I want to say thank you
Yes.
so much
No,
for
thank
being a
you.
part of today. We are so excited to have you. We cannot wait to have you again because, girl, like you said, it's a movement
It is. It's going to be a lot more stuff to come.
and
Yeah.
there's way more stuff to come. And I'm
Yeah.
super excited that I got to talk to you in the
Yes.
beginning because later
Thank
on, I
you.
can't wait to hear the update.
Yes.
So
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you, Susie.